Every journey begins with a single step. For many, the first step is the greatest challenge. Yet for all, the obstacles, the doubt, and conviction teach us about ourselves. It's these moments in life, a test of our abilities, our mind, when we don't know, but we still proceed, driven by the unspoken, but ignited by the obsession that yields some of life's greatest lessons and rewards. Join me as we explore incredible stories of leaders forging industries, enterprises, and ultimately, themselves. I'm your host, Adam Giery, and welcome to Capital Class. Let's begin. Classmates, welcome to another episode of Capital Class. Today, we continue our focus on the ESE industry. As many of you are aware, today's educational environment reflects a broad array of learners. Historically, special education was an area of limited focus and size. Yet the US DOE has reported that 14% of today's student population is on some level of accommodation or receiving additional support in the classroom. This growth brings both unique challenges and opportunities. And today's guest, Dr. Ed Buckley, with Scholar Education, is working to make it a brighter future for those learners. Ed, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start just with the sector. I would say even 10 years ago, this was an area that if you spoke with a school district, they would say, someone in my team handles that. Now, the rise of both attention that these learners create great opportunity, they have a brighter future, but also parents that are just not willing to accept less has really brought this to the forefront as a core issue for a school district. Speak a little bit about your experience in the industry and then what you're seeing as the trends in that industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me, and hello, everyone. I think there's never been a better opportunity to come in and innovate this space. When you look at what windows of opportunity look like as a founder and entrepreneur coming in, you want the market forces to be pushing you. You want the audience to be pulling it. You've got parents that really view education from a consumer lens, right? They're getting involved. They want more. They have access to information they haven't had. And simply just saying, hey, we're going to slap some accommodations on an Excel sheet and we'll meet you maybe once a semester, if that, and tell you how things are going, aren't really acceptable. Luckily, the other opportunity here is you've got great technology, you've got AI that enable us to do a tremendous amount that we've never done before. So when it comes to executing, automating, and then providing insights, I mean, the time is now.
I think when people think about exceptional learners, right? Mm-hmm. Their understanding is the most profound, right? Those that are both in needing of a healthcare component and an education component. Yet a lot of these learners are in just some form of needing support. What is the ideal, or I guess more better word, the common student that you see?
So the example I always use, and we're probably about the same age, when I was a child, the only exceptional students generally had their own class, right?
Absolutely.
Because they required such specific and intensive accommodations. That's not the case in today's population. As you mentioned, right, you're talking 10, 20, even 30% of classrooms have some form of an accommodation. And fortunately, they're not accommodations that are so disruptive to the course of a bell curve of students that you can't accommodate them without, removing them to their own classrooms. So you have a much more integrated population today, which presents, great opportunities, but also challenges, which is as a teacher, in a 30-person classroom, you got 2 people that have this accommodation and 3 people that have this. And so just managing that is, it's challenge, but I think it's a great opportunity. That's certainly why we've been able to get in and where we see the ability to help students, teachers, and parents.
Now, your platform really addresses kind of at the intersection of once was a large labor force declining, a small population of students, and a very paper system. And you're finding a way to leverage the technology you have created to accelerate the outcomes of those students and make it digital?
I mean, I honestly did not believe what I heard. So I'm not originally from the education sector, got involved, paired up with Marley, who's just an expert in this space. And we started talking to teachers about, their biggest pain in ESE, managing accommodations, doing the reporting, talking to parents and keeping them updated. I was like, this can't be true, right? So we went to some of the best schools, the schools that are 100% ESE. And I thought they will have an amazing system that maybe we can learn from and replicate at scale. And it was just mind-blowing that essentially it's a glorified Excel sheet that is just manually tracked. And we thought, look, we can do the hard work of trying to figure out how to retrofit great technology and make it really scalable and have an awesome user interface.
And that business now, obviously in an emergent state, but your view and the vision for the business looks like what?
I think every industry except for education has had periods of amazing workforce, workflow development, automations of daily administrative tasks so that the workers have better output, less work, they become more human, right? Education has been in a bubble for a long time. And between school choice, school vouchers, changing administrations, and AI just blindsiding it, they're no longer in a bubble protecting them from ways of the past. So the vision here is, how do we help be a force multiplier for teachers so that students have better outcomes and parents can be more involved without it being a full-time job?
I love the word force multiplier because there's a easy punching bag, which is the teachers need to do better. The system needs to do more. And I have never met a teacher who keeps their job because they hate children or they work in a system because they plan on slacking off, right? My experience is that they're doing the absolute best they can. And maybe the Excel file was probably an evolution of the prior system, which might have been paper. And so I think there's a lot of hope and optimism in the work that you're doing, and I, for one, will be on the sidelines cheering you on.
Well, we appreciate that.
Your story is different. This is not your first business. And this is not your first business in the sense of taking it from inception to enterprise. Tell us a little bit about your beginning.
So I went to the University of Florida. I have 3 degrees from there. And my master's thesis pitch was actually for the idea of my company, which would become Peerfit. And I got chastised by my professors. They said, this is not Shark Tank. This is a higher learning environment. But there was someone in the audience who was from the PhD program and said, we're really trying to build a new innovative program here. Why don't you work on whatever this company is? Do your research as a PhD student, and we'll both help each other out. And what ended up becoming a 12-year journey was we built a company called Peerfit, raised about $50 million in capital from the owner of the Celtics and 49ers, the owner of the Tampa Bay Lightning, just had an amazing board, won numerous national awards, fastest, companies growing, best culture when no one else was remote and we were, had an exit where we sold off a piece of the business to Peloton. At the time, it was the largest M&A transaction Peloton had done. Less than a year later, sold the whole business to FitOn, which is the #1 fitness consumer app. At the time, I think 13 million members. Then the businesses effectively merged. I still sit as CEO at FitOn Health, and it's just been a tremendous journey. I've seen every up, down, being in the fitness space before, during, after COVID, being in the Medicare space before, during, after COVID. It's been a remarkable journey, for sure.
I always remark to people that they see you at the end. They see you at year 12. Yeah. Astounding board, right? Fundraising success, execution success, the transaction, right? The almighty transaction. Take us back to those early days. Like, how nascent was it? Where, take us back to when you were building it and the doubt and the kind of experience that goes along with that.
So my friends and I were all grad students at the University of Florida. We actually used to meet at the Moe's on campus. is where we would meet. So we did many work meeting at Moe's. I would host people at my apartment. We built an internship program so that people could get college credit for coming to work with us. We didn't know what the heck we were doing for so long. And, you get successively better every time you do anything. And starting a business is no different. So the original version of Peerfit probably took me 5 years before we hit $1 million in revenue. Then we had a startup inside of Peerfit where we built a version of ourselves for Medicare. We hit $1 million within 1 year. Post-merger, we had to basically kind of like rebuild the whole company. And after the FitOn deal, we've 5x'd the revenue in 2 years. And that's, as a mature business, 5x'd it. And then even you move that to Scholar, we did $1 million in our first year. So you just get so much better at doing it. And it is laughable when I think back of what me of 10 years ago looked like and how immature the decisions you make and just how slow and sloppy the processes are. But it's helped be myself and our entire kind of coaching tree of Peerfit alumni who've gone on to do amazing things. We all learned from that. And even still today, we have people on the team who are like part of that first group who are still with us multiple M&A deals later, and they just absolutely love it.
I shared this often, which was people see us today, right? Tomorrow marks our 3-year anniversary of acquiring the business. And 2 weeks from now marks my 10th year here. And I shared that for the lens of, the wins are in fact compounding, but they over a long period of time, right? And so what was considered a win 3 years ago, we published the team this year, and that's what we do in a quarter.
Yep.
And when you start to see that over time, the gains are accretive, but they would just require time under tension and persistence. Some of that persistence brings the question of, how do you recharge? What is it that people don't see?
Before I answer that question, I want to comment. That is actually my most fun thing to do. And it was, for whatever reason, fun for me in the beginning. I always used to measure things when I talked to investors to say, what took us a month before we did in a week?
Yeah.
Or now what took us a whole year to do, we're doing in a quarter. That's always my most favorite comparative thing from growth and from a revenue perspective. It's just really, it's quite fun. What recharges me? I am a guy in his 30s who's not married, who doesn't have kids. And so I have the great freedom to go out and just be active whenever I want to. I go on really early morning walks. I go like 4 a.m. on walks, and I listen to probably 6 podcasts a day, and I walk every single evening at sunset, and I try to work as hard as possible, in between then. But physical activity has always been my great escape. I do a lot of my calls while I'm walking. That's what I was doing outside before I came in here today. I have some great friends and family who've supported me. But honestly, I love every business that I'm involved in. Otherwise, I wouldn't be involved in them. And the struggle and the challenge and overcoming it gives me so much energy. I'm absolutely motivated and energized by the challenge.
And it's clear. Like the concept of the happy warrior is very real. And you, without a doubt, exude that ethos. We like to end all of our shows when we call the Fast Four.
Ooh, lovely.
Greatest area of growth for you in the coming year?
Personally or as a company?
Either.
Ooh, great. I think for us as a company, we're going to try to go to a lot of different states, which means every state views education very differently. So adapting to other states that are not Florida.
And on the personal side?
I've worked on being a lot calmer this year.
Okay.
So I think doing it more effortlessly without intention is going to be the focus.
One place in the world everyone has to travel to.
Switzerland. I went this year. I cannot speak highly enough. It is the most beautiful place on earth. The air is so crisp there.
Favorite podcast that everyone needs to be listening to?
I think everyone listens to All In and people listen to Joe Rogan. I love politics, but I ended up getting on a legal podcast called Advisory Opinions. It is a down-the-middle analysis of Supreme Court decisions, and it's boring, but it is really funny.
In one trend in today's education market that really excites you?
I love that schools are not fighting the advent of technology infused with AI. I expected there to be so much fear, so much pushback, and they're being thoughtful because they need to be, and they're not just letting it come in. But they are being collaborative, not combative.
Ed, as a fellow operator on the journey of building an enterprise, I admire what you've built, and we wish you incredible success along the way.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on Capital Class. All the best.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining today's episode of Capital Class. If you're interested in joining our next discussion, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or any of your favorite podcast platforms. Capital Class is a venture with the Strategist Podcast Network. To view the entire lineup of shows, visit strategistgroup.com. I'm Adam Giery. Class is closed.